Hey guys, tonight we are traveling north. The sea is freezing and the snow is falling, but we have a place to go. We are entering the great hall of the Vikings. This isn't a story of raids or war. It's a story of hearth, home, and the incredible warmth of the Longhouse. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Now, wrap your furs around you, listen to the crackle of the long fire, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The North Atlantic stretches before you like a living creature, grey and endless, and cold beyond comprehension. You stand on the rocky coastline of what will one day be called Norway, though in this moment, in this winter of the late ninth century, such names mean little to the people who live here. They know this land by its fjords and its mountains, by the names of the valleys where their ancestors are buried, by the particular way the wind comes howling down from the glaciers when a storm is building out at sea. And there is always a storm building out at sea. The waves crash against the black volcanic rocks with a sound like thunder, like the gods themselves beating drums in the deep places of the world. The spray rises 20 feet into the air, catches the weak winter light, and falls back as ice. Each wave is a declaration of power, a reminder that the ocean is vast and hungry and patient, and that it has swallowed countless ships and countless men, and will swallow countless more before the world grows old. The sea here is not blue. It is steel gray, dark as a wolf's coat, and it moves with a terrible purpose, rolling and heaving as if something massive is breathing beneath the surface. Above you, the sky is the color of iron, heavy and low, pressing down upon the earth as if the heavens themselves have grown tired and wish to rest upon the mountains. Snow falls in thick, wet flakes that cling to your furs, to your beard if you have one, to your eyelashes, blurring your vision and making the world seem softer than it truly is. This is a deception. There is nothing soft about this place. This is a land that demands strength, that requires endurance, that sorts the living from the dead with the cold efficiency of a sword blade. The wind screams. There is no other word for it. The wind here does not whisper or murmur or sigh. It screams like a woman in childbirth, like a warrior with a spear in his belly, like something wild and hurt and furious. It comes tearing down from the mountains where the snow lies so deep that no living thing moves there for half the year, and it picks up speed as it races across the frozen ground, gathering cold and fury until it hits the coast with force enough to knock a man off his feet. It tears at your cloak, finds every gap in your clothing, every weakness in your defenses against the cold. It steals the warmth from your body with fingers of ice, and it never stops, not for a moment, not even to draw breath. This is a hostile world. This is a world that does not want you here. The cold is so profound that it seems to have weight, seems to press against your chest and make breathing difficult. Your fingers ache inside your gloves. Your face feels tight and strange, the skin pulled taut over your bones. When you breathe, the air burns your lungs, and when you exhale, your breath hangs before you in a cloud of vapor that is whipped away instantly by the relentless wind. This is the kind of cold that kills. This is the kind of cold that your ancestors knew well, that shaped them, that made them hard and stubborn and clever, because those who were not hard enough, not stubborn enough, not clever enough, simply did not survive. But you are walking. You are moving with purpose across this frozen landscape, following a path that has been worn smooth by countless feet over countless years. The path leads away from the sea, up a gentle slope where the grass lies brown and dead beneath the snow, where stunted trees grow in twisted shapes, bent and warped by the constant wind. And ahead of you, perhaps 200 yards distant, you can see your destination. The longhouse rises from the earth like something alive, like a massive beast at rest. In this dim winter light, with the snow falling and the world reduced to shades of grey and white, it looks less like a building and more like a sleeping dragon, long and low and powerful, its back humped against the sky. It is enormous, this structure, far larger than anything you might expect to find in such a remote and brutal place. It stretches perhaps 100 feet from end to end, maybe more, a great spine of timber and turf that dominates the landscape. Smoke rises from it, not from a single chimney as you might expect, but from holes along its length, grey columns of smoke that are immediately torn apart by the wind and scattered across the darkening sky. As you walk closer, the details begin to resolve themselves from the general mass. The walls are not straight but curved, bowing outward like the hull of a ship, and this is no accident. The people who built this place, the people who live here, are shipwrights and sailors. They know that a curved wall is stronger than a straight one, that it sheds the wind more effectively, that it can bear greater weight and resist greater pressure. The walls are made of vertical timbers, massive logs that have been split and shaped and set into the earth, standing shoulder to shoulder like a shield wall, like warriors standing ready to defend against any assault. And assault there will be, but not from other men, not here, not in winter. Here, the assault comes from the weather itself, from the wind and the snow and the terrible, grinding cold. The roof is thick with turf, with earth and growing grass, though the grass is brown now, dormant, waiting for the spring that is still months away. The turf lies in layers, heavy and dense, providing insulation that no amount of timber alone could match. Snow has accumulated on the roof, adding yet another layer of protection, another barrier against the cold. From a distance, with the snow covering it, the longhouse almost disappears into the landscape, becomes part of the earth itself. Only the smoke betrays its presence. Only the smoke says that here, in this place, there is fire, and where there is fire, there is life. Your pace quickens as you draw nearer. You can feel the promise of warmth ahead, can almost taste it. Your body knows what awaits inside that structure, knows it with a deep animal certainty. Shelter, heat, safety. These are not luxuries here. They are life itself. Without them, you would be dead before morning, frozen solid, your body rigid as iron, your blood turned to ice in your veins. But the longhouse is there, waiting, and you are almost at the door. The door itself is a marvel, though you have seen it countless times before. It is made of oak, heavy oak, cut from trees that grew for 200 years before they were felled. The wood is dark with age and smoke, polished smooth by generations of hands. The door is low, deliberately low, forcing anyone who enters to duck their head, to humble themselves, to acknowledge that they are entering a sacred space, a protected space. Iron hinges hold the door in place, hinges that were forged in the fire that burns inside, shaped by skilled hands, strong enough to bear the weight of the oak, strong enough to last for generations. You reach out, your hand numb inside your glove, and grasp the iron ring that serves as a handle. It is cold, so cold that you can feel it even through the leather. You pull, and the door swings open with a deep, resonant sound, and immediately, before you have even stepped across the threshold, the world changes. The wind dies. Not completely, not instantly, but as you step through the doorway and into the interior of the longhouse, the screaming fury of the wind fades to a distant murmur, a background noise that no longer matters. The door closes behind you, pushed by willing hands, and the sound of it settling into place is solid, final, a declaration that the outside world has been shut away, that you are no longer subject to its cruelties. The heat hits you like a physical force, a wave of warmth so sudden and so intense that for a moment you cannot breathe. After the terrible cold outside, the heat feels almost unbearable, almost painful, as if your skin is waking up from a long sleep and protesting the change. Your cheeks begin to tingle, then to burn, and you know that the redness will last for hours. Your fingers throb as the blood begins to flow back into them. You can feel sweat beginning to form on your scalp, beneath the fur of your hat. The transition from cold to heat is so abrupt, so dramatic, that your body struggles to adjust, caught between two extremes. And then there is the smoke. It is everywhere, thick and grey, hanging in layers throughout the interior of the longhouse. It fills your nose, your mouth, your lungs. For a moment you cough, your body rebelling against the acrid thickness of it. But this is familiar. This is expected. You have breathed this smoke all your life. It is the smell of home, the smell of safety, the smell of survival. The smoke comes from the fires that burn constantly in the center of the hall, fires that must never be allowed to go out, not in winter, not when the cold outside is waiting to reclaim this space, to turn it back into frozen earth and death. Beneath the smoke, woven through it, are other smells, better smells, smells that make your mouth water and your stomach clench with hunger. There is the smell of wood smoke, clean and sharp, the particular scent of pine resin burning, popping and crackling in the flames. There is the smell of roasted meat, rich and fatty, the kind of smell that speaks of sustenance and satisfaction. There is the smell of fresh bread, or something like bread, grain that has been ground and mixed with water and baked on hot stones. There is the smell of bodies of people, the warm animal smell of humanity crowded together in a confined space, not unpleasant, oddly comforting, the smell of life continuing, of community, of survival as a collective endeavor. Your eyes are adjusting now to the dim interior. Outside, even on this dark winter day, there was the reflected light from the snow, the open sky, the endless expanse of sea and land. Inside, the light is different, warm and golden and confined, coming primarily from the fires that burn in the center of the hall. The smoke makes everything hazy, gives the light a quality like mist, like something you could reach out and touch. Shadows dance on every surface, shifting and moving with the flicker of the flames, making the interior seem alive, seem almost to breathe. You move further into the hall, your boots making soft sounds on the packed earth floor. The floor here is not wood or stone, but earth itself, hard-packed dirt that has been walked on for so many years that it has become almost as solid as stone. In some places, fresh straw has been scattered, providing a layer of insulation from the cold ground, providing a softer surface to walk on, to sit on, to sleep on. The straw rustles beneath your feet with each step, a gentle sound, almost musical. The interior of the longhouse is vast. Standing here, just inside the door, looking down the length of the hall, it seems to stretch on forever, disappearing into smoke and shadow. The space is not divided into separate rooms as a modern house would be. There are no walls, no corridors, no doors. It is a single great hall, open from end to end, a communal space where all the activities of life take place in view of one another. Privacy, as you would understand it, does not exist here. But neither is it needed. These people have lived together, worked together, survived together for so long that they move around each other with the ease of water flowing around stones, each person knowing their place, their role, their position in the intricate dance of communal life. The walls curve inward as they rise, those great timbers forming a shape that is both elegant and functional. The curve is gentle but pronounced, creating a space that feels both spacious and sheltered, both open and protective. The timbers themselves are massive, far larger than they need to be from a purely structural standpoint, but their size serves a purpose beyond mere function. They are a statement, a declaration of strength and permanence. They say that this hall was built to last, that it was built by people who intended to stay, who claimed this land and would not be moved from it. The pillars that support the roof are even more impressive. They stand at intervals along the length of the hall, great tree trunks that have been stripped of their bark, but otherwise left largely unworked, still bearing the natural shape of the trees they once were. Each pillar is different, unique, with its own pattern of grain, its own subtle curves and irregularities. They are not uniform, not standardized, but each one is beautiful in its own way, and each one is incredibly strong. These pillars support the massive weight of the roof, the timber beams, the thick layers of turf, the accumulated snow, and they do so without complaint, without strain, as solid and reliable as mountains. The roof itself is a wonder of construction, though you can see only glimpses of it through the smoke. Great beams span the width of the hall, resting on the pillars, and across these beams lie smaller timbers, and across those lie branches and reeds, and atop all of that lies the turf, the earth, the grass. The layers work together to create a seal against the elements, a barrier that is remarkably effective. The turf provides insulation, trapping heat inside, keeping cold outside. It is heavy enough that wind cannot tear it away, dense enough that rain cannot penetrate it, alive enough that it renews itself, that the roots of the grass hold it together, knitting it into a single cohesive mass that will last for decades with only minimal maintenance. The smoke rises naturally toward the roof, gathering in the rafters, hanging there in thick layers before eventually finding its way out through the holes that have been left for this purpose. These holes are not large, not open to the sky, but carefully positioned, carefully sized, allowing smoke to escape while admitting as little cold air as possible. It is a delicate balance, one that has been perfected over generations, refined through trial and error until it works exactly as it should. Down the center of the hall, running nearly its entire length, is the Langeld, the long fire. This is the heart of the Longhouse, the source of all heat, all light, all cooked food. It is not a hearth in the conventional sense, not a fireplace or a stove. It is a trench, a long, narrow channel perhaps 3 feet wide and only inches deep, lined with flat stones that have been carefully selected for their ability to withstand heat without cracking. The trench runs straight and true down the center line of the hall, dividing the space into two halves, and along its length, fires burn at intervals, each fire serving a different purpose, each one carefully tended, carefully maintained. At the far end of the hall, nearest to the place where the family of the hall's owner sleeps, where the most important people sit, the fire burns hot and bright. Here, the flames leap high, fed with good dry wood, with logs that have been split and seasoned and stored in a dry place for just this purpose. This fire provides light, pushes back the darkness, allows people to see what they are doing even on the darkest winter nights. This fire also provides prestige, provides spectacle. When guests come to the hall, when important visitors arrive, they see first this bright fire, this display of wealth and generosity, this proof that the owner of the hall has wood to spare, can afford to burn it freely, is not reduced to husbanding every log, every stick, every scrap. Further down the fire trench, toward the middle of the hall, the fires are more modest, more practical. Here, the flames are lower, steadier, the wood chosen not for the height of its flame, but for the consistency of its burn. These fires are for cooking, for the slow, patient work of preparing food for a household that might number 30 or 40 people or more. The heat here is more intense at ground level, concentrated, perfect for setting pots and pans, for hanging cauldrons, for arranging flat stones that can be used for baking. And further still, near the door where you entered, the fire is barely a fire at all, just a bed of glowing embers, cherry red and orange, pulsing gently with heat. These embers are the most precious part of the fire, in some ways more valuable than the leaping flames at the far end. Embers are what you use to start new fires, to restart fires that have died down, to carry fire from one place to another. Embers are also what you use for the most delicate cooking, for toasting grain, for warming things gently without burning them. And embers are insurance, a guarantee that if the flames go out, if the wood runs low, if something goes wrong, you can rebuild the fire, can coax it back to life, can keep death by cold at bay for another night. The stones that line the fire trench are blackened with soot, stained with grease, marked by countless meals, countless cold nights, countless gatherings. They radiate heat constantly, absorbing it from the flames, and then releasing it slowly, steadily, helping to warm the hall even during those brief moments when the fires burn low. The heat rises from the stones in visible waves, distorting the air above them, making the world shimmer and dance. Around the fire trench, on either side, the floor of the hall is arranged with careful logic, with an organization that reflects both practical necessity and social hierarchy. Closest to the fire are the sleeping benches, low platforms built along the walls, raised just enough to keep sleepers off the cold earth. wide enough for a person to lie down comfortably. These benches are where people will sleep tonight, wrapped in furs and wool blankets, with the heat from the central fire washing over them, keeping them warm through the long hours of darkness. The benches nearest to the brightest fire, nearest to the warmest spot, are reserved for the most important people, for the head of the household and his family. The benches further away, where the heat is less intense, where the smoke is thicker, where the darkness gathers more closely, are for those of lower status, for servants, for slaves, for visitors who do not merit a place of honor. But all of this hierarchy, all of this careful arrangement, is softened by the reality of survival. In winter, in the deep cold when the wind screams outside and the snow lies thick on the ground, status matters less than it might at other times. Everyone in this hall needs warmth. Everyone needs food. Everyone needs shelter. And so, while the best spots are still reserved for the highest-ranking individuals, there is a sense of shared purpose, of common cause, that transcends social boundaries. The fire belongs to everyone. The hall protects everyone. Survival is a collective effort, and everyone here understands this at a fundamental level. The smoke hangs in the rafters, thick and grey, moving slowly in currents you cannot see, responding to drafts and temperature variations in ways that seem almost purposeful. This smoke is not waste, not something to be tolerated reluctantly. It serves vital functions, functions that the people who built this hall understood perfectly. Smoke preserves food. In the rafters above you, hanging from hooks and pegs and lengths of rope, are sides of meat, whole fish, sausages, all slowly being cured by the constant exposure to smoke. The smoke dries them, prevents rot, kills parasites, imparts flavor. Meat that is properly smoked will last for months, will remain edible through the entire winter when no fresh meat can be had, when hunting is difficult or impossible, when the world outside is frozen solid. The smoke also has more subtle effects. It keeps insects away, repels the flies and beetles that would otherwise infest stored food. It makes the interior of the hole less hospitable to mice and rats, though it does not eliminate them entirely. Nothing eliminates them entirely, and the smoke creates a kind of barrier, a layer of protection that keeps the cold from penetrating too deeply into the space. Cold air is denser than warm air, would naturally sink to the floor, would create a layer of freezing air at ground level. But the smoke disrupts this, mixes with the air, creates circulation, helps to distribute the heat from the fires more evenly throughout the hall. The golden haze that the smoke creates transforms the interior of the longhouse into something almost magical, almost unreal. Light from the fires filters through the smoke, becomes diffused, softened, turned into something warm and gentle and comforting. Shadows are not harsh here, not sharp-edged, but soft and blurred, blending into one another, creating a world of gradations rather than contrasts. Faces glow in the firelight, features indistinct, features that seem to shift and change as the smoke swirls and the flames flicker. It is like being underwater, or in a dream, or in some place between waking and sleeping where the normal rules do not quite apply. Looking at the longhouse from inside, observing its shape and structure, you cannot help but think of a ship. The curved walls are like a hull turned upside down. The great beams of the roof are like the ribs of a ship, like the frames that give a vessel its shape and strength. The whole structure has that same sense of purposeful design, of every element serving multiple functions, of nothing wasted, nothing superfluous. The people who built this hall were sailors, shipwrights, masters of working with wood and wind and water. They brought that knowledge, that skill, that fundamental understanding of structural principles to the construction of their homes. A longhouse is a ship that will never sail, but it will carry its passengers through the storms of winter with the same reliability, the same protection that a good ship provides at sea. There is even a kind of motion here, a gentle sway that you feel more than see, as if the longhouse is floating on some invisible ocean. It is an illusion, of course, created by the shifting smoke, the dancing shadows, the flicker of the firelight. But it is a powerful illusion, one that reinforces the connection between this place and the sea, between the people who live here and their identity as seafarers, as travelers, as explorers of distant waters. Around you, life continues with the steady rhythm of long practice, of routines that have been perfected over generations. Near one of the fires, a man sits cross-legged on a pile of furs, a piece of chainmail across his lap. He is cleaning it, maintaining it, ensuring that each link is free of rust, that the metal remains supple and strong. In his hands, he holds a cloth and a small pot of grease, rendered from sheep fat, mixed with a little beeswax to give it the right consistency. He works methodically, almost meditatively, rubbing the grease into the metal rings, working it into every joint, every overlap. The chainmail makes a soft, rhythmic sound as he works, a gentle swishing, metal sliding against metal, cloth rubbing against steel. It is a soothing sound, repetitive, hypnotic, the kind of sound that becomes part of the background, that your ear registers but your mind does not consciously note. The man's face is weathered-lined, his beard streaked with grey. His hands are scarred, marked with small white lines where blades have nicked him, where hot metal has burned him, where years of work have left their permanent signature. But his movements are sure, confident, the movements of someone who has performed this task thousands of times, who could probably do it in complete darkness, by touch alone. He does not hurry. There is no need to hurry. Winter is long, and there will be many more nights like this one, many more hours to fill with necessary tasks. Nearby, a woman works at a vertical loom, a tall frame that stands against one of the walls. She is weaving wool, creating cloth that will become clothing, blankets, sails, any of a dozen necessary items. The loom is simple in design, but elegant in execution. Two upright posts connected by crossbeams, with warp threads hanging vertically, weighted at the bottom with small clay discs to keep them taut. The woman passes the weft thread through the warp using a wooden shuttle, her hands moving with practiced ease, building the fabric row by row, line by line. The loom makes its own sound, a gentle clicking as the shuttle passes through, as the weights knock against each other when the threads are adjusted, as the beater is used to push each new row of weft tightly against the one before. Click, 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 a steady beat, a metronome of productivity. The woman's fingers move constantly, checking tension, adjusting threads, ensuring that the weave is even, that the fabric will be strong and tight and worthy of the wool that has gone into it. Her expression is calm, focused but not tense, engaged in the work but not consumed by it. This is her contribution to the survival of the household, her way of ensuring that everyone will have warm clothing, that the sails of the ships will be sound, that the community will continue to function. The wool itself comes from the sheep that the household keeps, hardy animals that can survive the brutal winters here, that can find food even when the ground is covered with snow, that can provide wool and meat and milk. The wool has been sheared, cleaned, carded, spun into thread by hand, dyed with colors extracted from local plants and lichens. Reds from madder root, yellows from birch leaves, blues from woad, browns from walnut husks. The colors are muted, earthy, pleasing to the eye. The cloth that will emerge from this loom will not be white or bright or flashy, but it will be warm and it will last, and those are the qualities that matter most. Around the woman's feet, in the scattered straw, children play. There are three of them, two boys and a girl, ranging in age from perhaps 4 to 8 years old. They are engaged in some game of their own invention, something involving small wooden figures, carved crudely but with evident care, representing warriors or guards or animals. The children's voices are soft, not quite whispers, but not full volume either, instinctively modulated to blend with the ambient sound of the hall, to not disturb the adults who are working. They know without being told that this is a shared space, that everyone here must coexist, must find ways to occupy themselves that do not interfere with others. The children are dressed in layers of wool, their clothing simple but effective, tunics and trousers, small cloaks, leather shoes stuffed with straw for extra insulation. Their faces are ruddy with health, their eyes bright, their movements full of energy despite the long winter, despite the lack of space to truly run and play. They are doing what children have always done, what children will always do, finding joy in simple things, creating worlds out of imagination and scraps of wood, existing fully in the moment, unconcerned with the cold outside or the challenges of survival that preoccupy their parents. The straw beneath the children rustles and shifts as they move, soft, forgiving, providing a cushion against the hard earth floor. It smells of dried grass, of summer, of the fields that lie frozen now but will bloom again when the world warms. The straw serves many purposes here. It insulates the floor, keeps the cold from rising up through the ground. It provides padding, makes the hard surfaces more comfortable. It absorbs spills, can be swept up and replaced when it becomes too dirty or too damp. And it gives the hall a softness, a lived-in quality that makes it feel more like a home and less like a fortress, even though it serves both functions equally well. Throughout the hall, other people go about their business, each engaged in their own tasks, each contributing to the complex web of activities that keep the household functioning. An older woman sits near one of the middle fires, grinding grain between two stones, turning whole kernels into flour that can be mixed with water and baked into flatbread. The motion is repetitive, circular, her shoulders and arms doing most of the work, her hands guiding the top stone, keeping it moving in steady circles. The grain makes a soft, crunching sound as it is crushed, and the woman hums quietly to herself, some old tune, some melody that has been passed down through generations. A young man works with leather near another fire, cutting pieces for shoes, punching holes with an awl, preparing to stitch the pieces together with thread made from sinew. The leather is stiff, resistant, and he has to work hard to force the awl through it, putting his weight behind each thrust. But the leather will soften with wear, will mold to the foot of whoever wears these shoes, will provide protection against the cold and the wet and the sharp stones that lie everywhere on this rocky coast. Two men sit together on one of the sleeping benches, engaged in conversation, their voices low, their words lost in the general murmur of the hall. They might be discussing plans for the spring, for the sailing season that will come eventually, when the ice breaks up and the seas become navigable again. They might be telling stories, recounting old adventures, reliving raids and voyages that happened years ago but remain vivid in memory. Or they might simply be passing time, enjoying each other's company, finding comfort in the presence of another human being on this long winter night. The hum of the hall is almost palpable, a sound composed of many sounds, of voices and tools and fires, of children and animals, and the structure itself settling, creaking, breathing. It is the sound of community, of people choosing to live together, to support one another, to create something larger than any individual could create alone. In a world as harsh as this one, in a climate as brutal, survival depends on cooperation. No one can make it alone. Everyone needs everyone else. And so, the people in this hall have bound themselves together, have created alliances and obligations and relationships that will carry them through the winter and into the spring and beyond. This is not always easy. Living in such close quarters with no privacy, with no escape from the presence of others, creates friction, creates tensions. Disagreements arise. Personalities clash. Old grudges simmer beneath the surface. But these people have developed ways of managing conflict, of diffusing tension before it explodes into violence. They have rituals and customs, unspoken rules that everyone understands, mechanisms for resolving disputes and maintaining peace. They have to. The alternative is chaos, is the destruction of the fragile social structure that keeps them all alive. The firelight plays across faces, illuminates them from below, creates dramatic shadows, makes people look like characters from myth, like heroes from the old stories. And perhaps they are. Perhaps everyone here is a hero simply for surviving, for continuing to exist in the face of cold and hunger and darkness, for maintaining their humanity, their dignity, their sense of purpose when everything around them is hostile and bleak. At the far end of the hall, suspended over one of the cooking fires, a large iron cauldron hangs from a chain. The cauldron is ancient, probably older than anyone currently living in the hall, passed down through generations, carefully maintained, never allowed to rust or crack or fail. Iron is valuable here, precious, difficult to obtain. An iron cauldron is a treasure, a tool that makes the difference between survival and starvation. And this cauldron has served its purpose well, has fed countless meals to countless people, has never failed in its duty. Inside the cauldron, stew bubbles gently, thick and rich and aromatic. The base of the stew is water drawn from a nearby stream, water that was carried here in wooden buckets, water that was carefully checked to ensure it was clean, free of contamination, safe to drink and cook with. To this water has been added salt pork, preserved meat from pigs that were slaughtered in the fall, salted and stored, waiting for winter when fresh meat would be impossible to come by. The pork has been cut into chunks, brown and fatty, and it has been simmering for hours, long enough that the fat has begun to render out, flavoring the water, making it rich and satisfying. To the pork have been added root vegetables, the sturdy crops that can be stored through winter, that can survive in the cold darkness of a storage pit dug into the earth outside the hall. There are turnips, pale and dense, with a sharp, almost peppery flavor. There are carrots, though they are smaller and tougher than the carrots you might know, more closely related to their wild ancestors, with a stronger, more assertive taste. There are onions, invaluable onions, which add depth and complexity to any dish, which can turn a simple stew into something genuinely delicious. And there is cabbage, shredded and added near the end of the cooking process so that it retains some texture, some bite, does not dissolve completely into mush. The stew is seasoned simply, with salt and with herbs that were gathered during the summer and dried for winter use. Thyme, perhaps, or dill, or something local, something that grows wild on the hillsides and has been used for cooking here for generations. The seasoning is subtle, not overwhelming, just enough to enhance the natural flavors of the meat and vegetables, to tie everything together into a harmonious whole. The smell of the stew fills the hall, mingles with the smoke, with the smell of the fires, with the smell of warm bodies and wool and leather. It is a smell that makes your stomach clench with hunger, that makes your mouth water, that reminds you that you have not eaten in many hours, that your body needs fuel, needs sustenance, needs the calories that will keep you warm and alive through the cold night ahead. Near the cauldron, on flat stones that have been placed directly on the glowing embers of the fire, flatbread is baking. The dough is simple, just flour and water and a little salt, mixed to a thick paste, then flattened into rounds about the size of a hand. The rounds are placed directly on the hot stones, where they begin immediately to cook, the bottom crusting up, the top puffing slightly as steam builds inside. The smell of baking bread is different from the smell of the stew, sweeter, more immediate, more primal. Bread has been the staple of human existence for thousands of years, and the smell of it baking triggers something deep in the human brain, some ancient recognition that food is near, that survival is assured for another day. The flatbread bakes quickly, just a few minutes on each side, and when it is done, it is lifted from the stones with a wooden paddle, stacked on a wooden platter, ready to be distributed. The bread is dark, dense, chewy, nothing like the light, fluffy bread you might be familiar with, but it is filling, satisfying, perfect for soaking up the rich broth of the stew, for scooping up chunks of meat and vegetable, for filling your belly and warming you from the inside out. A woman tends the food, watching the cauldron, turning the flatbread at just the right moment, judging doneness by experience, by instinct, by a lifetime of cooking under these exact conditions. She knows exactly when the stew is ready, knows when the flavors have melded together, when the meat is tender enough, when the vegetables have softened but not disintegrated. She knows when to add more wood to the fire, when to bank the coals, when to move the cauldron to a hotter or cooler spot to adjust the cooking temperature. This is her domain, her expertise, her contribution to the survival of everyone in the hall. When the food is ready, when the woman judges that the moment has come, she begins to serve. She ladles stew into wooden bowls, simple bowls carved from a single piece of wood, polished smooth by use, stained dark by countless meals. She gives the first bowl to the head of the household, the Jarl or Carl or whatever his title might be, acknowledging his status, his position, his responsibility for everyone who lives under this roof. Then she serves his family, his wife, his children, moving through the hierarchy with practiced ease, ensuring that everyone receives their portion in the proper order, that no one is slighted, that social norms are observed. The bread is distributed similarly, each person receiving one or two pieces depending on their status, their age, their needs. Children receive smaller portions than adults. Workers who have been engaged in hard physical labor receive larger portions. The old and the infirm receive tender pieces from the center of the stew, where the meat is softest, easiest to chew and digest. As people receive their food, they settle in to eat, sitting on the benches, on piles of furs, on the straw-covered floor. There is no table, no formal dining arrangement. People eat where they sit, holding their bowls in their laps, tearing bread with their fingers, scooping stew with the bread or with wooden spoons. The atmosphere is relaxed, comfortable, convivial. Conversation continues, though it is quieter now, more subdued, as people focus on their food, on the simple pleasure of eating, of filling an empty stomach, of taking nourishment. The taste of the stew is hearty, robust, exactly what you need on a night like this. The pork is rich and fatty, melting on your tongue, coating your mouth with flavor. The vegetables are soft but not mushy, each one retaining its own distinct character, its own contribution to the overall taste. The broth is thick, flavorful, warming as it goes down, spreading heat through your chest, your belly. The bread is perfect for soaking up the broth, for making sure that not a drop is wasted, that every bit of flavor is consumed. It is simple food, peasant food perhaps, but it is deeply satisfying, deeply comforting, exactly right for this moment, this place, this life. As you eat, as the warmth of the food combines with the warmth of the fire, as your body begins to relax for the first time since you came in from the cold, you become aware of the fundamental rightness of this place, of this moment. Outside, the wind still screams. Outside, the snow still falls. Outside, the world is hostile and deadly and waiting to kill anyone foolish enough to venture into it unprepared. But inside, here in the Longhouse, there is warmth and light and food and community. Here, the ancient human drive to create shelter, to tame fire, to work together for mutual survival, has been perfected into something beautiful, something functional, something that will endure as long as people are willing to maintain it, to respect it, to understand what it represents. This is home. This is what home means to these people. Not luxury, not comfort in the modern sense, but protection from the elements, food in your belly, fire to keep you warm, and people around you who share your struggle, who will stand with you against the darkness, who will help you survive through the long winter until the light returns and the world softens and life becomes possible again. The meal continues, slow and unhurried, each person eating their fill, taking their time, savoring the food and the warmth and the companionship. When bowls are empty, they are set aside to be cleaned later, to be rinsed with water and scoured with sand and set to dry near the fire. The flatbread that remains is stacked carefully, stored where it will stay dry, where it can be eaten over the next few days as people need it. As the meal ends, as people finish eating and settle into the evening, the atmosphere in the hall shifts slightly. The urgency of hunger has been satisfied. The immediate needs of survival have been met. Now there is time for rest, for relaxation, for the small pleasures that make life worth living even in the harshest conditions. Some people begin to prepare for sleep, pulling furs and blankets from storage areas, arranging them on the sleeping benches, creating nests of warmth where they will spend the night. Others remain near the fires, talking quietly, telling stories, maintaining the social bonds that hold the community together. The fires burn on, tended carefully, never allowed to go out. The heart of the longhouse, the source of all warmth, all light, all cooked food. The smoke rises steadily, weaving its way through the rafters, finding its way eventually to the holes in the roof, to the cold night air outside. The shadows continue to dance on the walls, animated by the flickering flames, creating a world that is both solid and insubstantial, both real and dreamlike. In this space, in this moment, time seems to slow, seems almost to stop. The rhythms of life here are different from the frantic pace of the modern world. Here, there is no artificial light to extend the day, no electricity to power endless distractions. Here, when darkness falls, there is only the fire, and the fire demands patience, demands presence, demands that you slow down and pay attention and exist in the moment because there is nowhere else to be, nothing else to do. The winter night is long, but it does not feel oppressive. It feels natural, feels right, feels like the world settling into its proper rhythm. The children have grown quiet now, tired from their play, settling down among the furs, their eyes heavy, their movements slow. The woman at the loom has set aside her work, has covered the partially finished cloth to protect it from dust and smoke. The man who was cleaning his chainmail has wrapped it carefully, has set it aside, has moved to his sleeping place. Throughout the hall, people are finding rest, are preparing to surrender themselves to sleep, trusting in the fires to keep them warm, in the walls to keep them safe, in the community to watch over them through the dark hours. The Longhouse protects them all, these people of the North, these survivors of a brutal world. It gives them shelter from the wind, from the cold, from the darkness. It gives them a place to gather, to work, to eat, to sleep, to live out their lives in the company of others who understand what survival means in a place like this. It is more than a building. It is a statement of defiance against the hostile world outside, a declaration that humans will not simply endure, but will create, will build, will make beauty and warmth and community even in the coldest, darkest places on earth. And so the night continues, as it has continued for countless nights before, as it will continue for countless nights to come. The fires burn, the smoke rises, the people rest. And outside, beyond the massive oak door, beyond the thick walls, beyond the layers of turf and earth and snow, the wind screams on, but it cannot reach them here, cannot touch them, cannot diminish the warmth and the safety and the profound sense of home that fills this space. The Longhouse stands firm, a ship that will never sail, but will carry its passengers safely through the storm of winter, through the darkness, through the cold, until the spring comes again and the world awakens and life begins anew. You're absolutely right. I apologize. Let me give you the full part 2 with approximately 10,000 words, starting immediately with section 8. The warmth of the food has settled into your body now, spreading through your limbs, creating a pleasant heaviness that makes movement seem unnecessary, almost undesirable. You are content to remain where you are, to let the evening unfold at its own pace, to surrender to the rhythm of life in the Longhouse. And as if sensing this shift in mood, as if recognizing that the time has come for a different kind of nourishment, a man rises from one of the benches and moves toward a large wooden chest that sits against the wall near the place of honor. This chest is carved with intricate patterns, with interlaced designs that seem to move and shift in the firelight, with images of serpents and dragons and trees whose roots and branches intertwine endlessly. The chest is old, perhaps as old as the Longhouse itself, and it holds something precious, something that is brought out only in the evening, only when the work is done and the food has been eaten, and the time has come for rest and fellowship. The man opens the chest with reverence, with care, and from inside he lifts a large clay vessel, sealed with a stopper made of wood and wrapped with leather to ensure a tight fit. This vessel contains mead, the drink of warriors and poets, the drink of celebration and memory, the drink that transforms an ordinary evening into something special, something worth remembering. The mead has been made from honey gathered during the summer when the bees were active, when the flowers bloomed across the hillsides and the world was warm and generous. The honey was mixed with water, fermented with wild yeasts that live in the air, that are carried on the wind, that have always been part of this place. The fermentation has been slow, careful, watched over by someone who understands the process, who knows how to coax the honey into giving up its sweetness and taking on something deeper, something richer, something that speaks to the soul as much as to the body. The man carries the vessel to the fire, sets it down carefully on one of the flat stones that ring the flames. The heat will warm the mead slightly, will bring out its aroma, will make it more pleasant to drink on this cold night. While the mead warms, the man retrieves drinking horns from another storage area, horns that have been carved from cattle, hollowed out, polished smooth, fitted with metal rims to protect the edges and to make them more durable. These horns are beautiful objects, functional but also artistic, bearing designs carved into their surfaces, images of animals and gods, and abstract patterns that please the eye. The horns cannot stand upright on their own. They must either be held or hung from a peg or set in a specially made stand. This is by design, not by accident. A drinking horn cannot be set down until it is empty, which means that when you drink from a horn, you must drink deeply, must commit to the act, must finish what you have started. It is a small thing, perhaps, but it creates a sense of ritual, a sense of purpose, that transforms drinking from a casual act into something more meaningful. The man removes the stopper from the vessel, and immediately the smell of the mead fills the air around the fire, sweet and strong and complex. It is the smell of honey, yes, but honey transformed, honey that has been changed by time and yeast into something more than itself. There are other notes in the aroma, hints of flowers, of fruit, of something almost spicy, something that tickles the nose and makes the mouth water. The smell mingles with the smoke, with the smell of the food, with the smell of the burning wood, creating a scent that is uniquely of this place, of this moment, that you will remember always, that will forever be associated in your mind with warmth and safety and the fellowship of the Longhouse. The man pours the mead carefully, filling the first horn and handing it to the head of the household, who accepts it with a nod of thanks. Then he fills another horn, and another, moving through the assembled people in the same order as the food was distributed, respecting hierarchy, acknowledging status, but also ensuring that everyone who wishes to drink will have the opportunity. When your turn comes, when the horn is placed in your hands, you feel the weight of it, the solidity of it, the smooth surface of the polished bone against your palms. You raise the horn to your lips, tilt it carefully, and take your first sip. The mead flows into your mouth, slightly warm from sitting near the fire, thick and smooth and impossibly sweet. The taste is unlike anything else, honey intensified, honey made liquid and potent and alive. There is a slight burn as you swallow, not unpleasant, just a warmth that spreads down your throat and into your chest, a gentle heat that seems to radiate outward from your core. The alcohol content is not high by modern standards, but it is enough to create a pleasant buzz, enough to soften the edges of consciousness slightly, to make the world seem gentler, kinder, more forgiving. You drink again, and the taste seems to deepen, to reveal layers that were not apparent on the first sip. There is the honey, always the honey, but beneath it are other flavors, hints of wildflowers, of meadow grasses, of summer sunshine captured and preserved in liquid form. The mead has taken on the character of the place where it was made, has absorbed something of the land, the air, the people who created it. It is a drink that tells a story, that carries within it the memory of summer, of warmth, of abundance, all contained in this horn, all available to you now in the depths of winter when such things seem impossible, seem like dreams from another world. The fermented honey coats your tongue, leaves a lingering sweetness that makes you want to take another sip, and then another. The warmth spreads through your chest like liquid sunlight, loosening muscles you didn't know were tense, dissolving worries you didn't know you were carrying. Your shoulders drop slightly, your jaw unclenches, your breathing deepens. The mead is working its magic, not just on your body, but on your mind, creating a sense of well-being, of contentment, of being exactly where you need to be at exactly the right moment. As you drink, as the mead works its subtle alchemy, you become aware of a deepening sense of relaxation, of ease, of connection to the people around you. The walls between individuals seem to thin slightly, not enough to be uncomfortable, but enough to create a sense of unity, of shared experience, of being part of something larger than yourself. This is one of the functions of the mead, one of the reasons it is valued, treasured, saved for evenings like this. It breaks down barriers, creates fellowship, turns a collection of individuals into a community, into a clan. Around you, others are drinking as well, and the atmosphere in the hall shifts again, becomes more animated, more lively, though in a gentle way, not boisterous or loud. Voices rise slightly, conversation becomes more free-flowing, more relaxed. Laughter emerges here and there, soft chuckles, the occasional full-throated laugh that rings through the hall and makes others smile even if they don't know what prompted it. The mead is working on everyone, binding them together, creating a shared mood that is warm and convivial and deeply satisfying. You finish your horn, tipping it back to get the last few drops, savoring that final taste of honey and fermentation and summer memories. Someone takes it from you, refills it without asking, hands it back. You did not ask for more, but more is offered, and you accept it because to refuse would be to reject the generosity of your host, would be to stand apart when the moment calls for togetherness. You drink again, more slowly this time, savoring each sip, letting the mead linger on your tongue, feeling the warmth spreading through your body, radiating outward from your core to your fingertips, to your toes, to the top of your head. The fire seems brighter now, the light more golden, more beautiful. The faces around you seem more dear, more precious, even the faces of people you barely know, people you have seen but never really noticed. The mead opens your heart slightly, makes you aware of the fundamental humanity of everyone here, the shared struggle, the shared determination to survive, to continue, to make life worth living even in circumstances that are brutal and unforgiving. You feel a surge of affection for these people, these survivors, these stubborn souls who refuse to be defeated by the cold and the dark and the endless winter. The horn grows lighter in your hands as you drink, the mead disappearing sip by sip, and with each swallow you feel more anchored to this place, more connected to this moment. The mead is not just a drink. It is a ritual, a ceremony, a way of marking the transition from the work of the day to the rest of the evening, from survival mode to living mode, from mere existence to something richer, something more meaningful. And then, into this warm haze of fellowship and contentment, a new element is introduced. Near the main fire, where the light is brightest, an older man rises from his seat. He is not large or imposing, not obviously powerful in the way that some of the warriors in the hall are powerful. But when he stands, when he moves toward the fire, conversation dies away, attention shifts toward him, and you realize that this man commands respect of a different kind, respect born not of physical strength, but of something else, something more subtle and more lasting. This is the Skald, the storyteller, the keeper of history and legend, the one who remembers when others forget, who preserves the deeds of the past and ensures they are passed to the future. In a world without writing, without books, without any permanent record beyond memory, the Skald is vital, irreplaceable, sacred. He is the living library, the human archive, the vessel through which the culture flows from one generation to the next. Without him, without people like him, everything would be lost, every deed forgotten, every lesson unlearned, every name erased from existence as if it had never been. The Skald settles himself near the fire, close enough to be illuminated, close enough that everyone can see his face, but not so close that the heat is uncomfortable. He takes a moment to arrange himself, to find a comfortable position, and in that moment the hall becomes completely silent. Even the children, who have been playing quietly, stop what they are doing and turn to watch. Everyone knows what is coming. Everyone wants to hear. The Skald does not shout. He does not raise his voice or try to command attention through volume. Instead, he speaks in a low tone, barely above conversational level, forcing everyone to lean in slightly, to focus, to pay attention. This is a technique, a deliberate choice that makes the listener work for the story, that requires active engagement rather than passive reception. And it works. Every eye is on the Skald. Every ear is tuned to his voice. The hall has become a theater, and the performance is beginning. His voice has a particular quality, a rhythmic cadence that is almost musical, though he is not singing. This is the Old Norse style of poetry, the alliterative verse that was the traditional form for storytelling in this culture. The words have meter and rhythm, stress patterns that repeat, creating a hypnotic effect, making the story easy to remember, easy to pass on. The Skald has spent years, perhaps decades, perfecting his craft, learning the old stories, memorizing thousands of lines, training his voice to carry emotion without melodrama, to convey meaning through subtle shifts in tone and pace. He begins with a tale of the sea, of a voyage to distant lands, of ships that sailed beyond the known world into waters where monsters lived and the sun never set in summer. His voice rises and falls like waves, speeding up during moments of action, slowing down during moments of reflection. The rhythm is mesmerizing, pulling you in, making it impossible to think about anything else, to be aware of anything except the voice and the story and the images forming in your mind. The Skald describes the preparation for the voyage, the loading of the ships with supplies, with barrels of salted meat and dried fish, with skins of fresh water, with the tools and weapons that would be needed in strange lands. His voice becomes practical, matter-of-fact, as he lists these items, and you can almost see the preparations, can almost smell the harbor, can almost feel the excitement and apprehension of the men who were about to leave everything familiar behind and sail into the unknown. Then his voice shifts, becomes tense, urgent, as he describes the departure, the ships pushing away from shore, the oars dipping into the water in perfect unison, the sail being raised to catch the wind. The rhythm of his words matches the rhythm of the oars, and you can hear them, can hear the splash and pull, the creak of the oarlocks, the commands of the captain keeping everyone in time. The Skald's hands move slightly, suggesting the motion of rowing, and his shoulders rock back and forth in time with the rhythm of his words. The voyage continues in the Skald's telling, and the rhythm changes again, becomes smoother, steadier, as the ships leave the coast behind and enter the open ocean. Here, his voice takes on a different quality, becomes almost meditative, describing the endless expanse of water, the way the sky and sea blend together at the horizon, the loneliness and the vastness and the terrible beauty of the open ocean. You can feel it, can feel the isolation, the smallness of the ships in the face of such immensity, the courage it must have taken to continue forward when every instinct screams to turn back, to return to the safety of land. Then comes danger. The Skald's voice drops to a near whisper, becomes dark and ominous as he describes storm clouds gathering, the wind picking up, the sea beginning to heave and roll. The tension builds slowly, the Skald drawing it out, making you wait, making you dread what is coming. And then the storm hits, and his voice explodes with controlled power, describing waves the size of mountains, wind that tears at the sails, rain that falls like arrows, thunder that sounds like the gods themselves are waging war in the heavens above. The ship struggles, the crew fights for survival, men are washed overboard and lost forever to the cold depths. And through it all, the Skald's voice maintains its rhythm, its control, never becoming chaotic, never losing the thread of the story. This is masterful storytelling, the ability to convey terror and chaos while remaining perfectly controlled, perfectly clear, ensuring that every word is heard, every image lands with maximum impact. And then, gradually, the storm passes. The Skald's voice softens, slows, becomes gentle again as he describes the clouds breaking, the sun emerging, the sea calming until it is smooth as glass. The surviving crew members look at each other with wonder, with gratitude, with the particular bond that forms between people who have faced death together and survived. The Skald lets the relief wash over the audience, lets them breathe again, lets them relax after the tension of the storm. But the story is not over. The ships continue, and eventually they sight land, a coastline unlike any they have seen before, with towering cliffs and strange vegetation and beaches of black sand. The Skald's voice becomes excited, curious, filled with wonder as he describes the first landing, the first steps onto this new soil, the realization that they have found something, discovered something, achieved something that will make them legendary, that will ensure their names are remembered long after they are dead. The Skald describes the exploration of this new land, the encounters with the people who live there, the trading and the fighting and the establishing of temporary settlements. His voice shifts constantly, adapting to each new scene, each new development, keeping the audience engaged, keeping them wondering what will happen next. He describes the strange animals they found, creatures they had never seen before, and the plants that grew there, and the way the sky looked different, and the quality of the light. And then, finally, he describes the return voyage, the decision to go home, the loading of the ships with treasures and strange goods, the farewell to the new land, and the long journey back across the ocean. The rhythm becomes steady again, almost monotonous, reflecting the long weeks of sailing. But underneath the monotony is anticipation, the knowledge that home is getting closer, that families are waiting, that stories will be told and songs will be sung about this voyage for generations to come. The Skald's voice drops to a whisper as he describes the first sighting of home, the familiar coastline appearing on the horizon, the emotion of that moment, the realization that they had survived, that they had accomplished their goal, that they were going to see their loved ones again. And then his voice rises one last time as he describes the arrival, the ships pulling into harbor, the crowds gathering on the shore, the reunions, the celebrations, the joy and relief and pride that everyone felt. And then he stops, simply stops. The last words hang in the air for a moment, and then silence rushes back in, complete and profound. No one moves. No one speaks. The Skald has woven a spell, has transported everyone in the hall to distant places, distant times, has made them feel things, experience things, live through things, all through the power of his voice and his words and his skill. Slowly the spell begins to break. Someone exhales deeply. Someone else shifts position. And then in quiet murmurs, appreciation is expressed, thanks are given, and the Skald nods, accepts the acknowledgement with quiet dignity, and settles back into his place by the fire. The performance is over, but its effects will linger for hours, perhaps for days. The story will be discussed, thought about, remembered. And someday, someone in this hall might tell the same story, might pass it on to the next generation, ensuring that it survives, that it continues, that the chain of memory is never broken. The mead continues to circulate. Horns are refilled one last time, and the gentle hum of conversation resumes, though at a lower level than before, as if people are reluctant to shatter completely the atmosphere that the Skald has created. The fire crackles softly, sending up occasional sparks that rise toward the smoke-filled rafters before winking out. The shadows dance on the walls, on the curved timbers, creating patterns that are almost hypnotic if you stare at them long enough. Near one of the middle fires, A warrior has begun to work on his gear, performing the kind of maintenance that is never truly finished, that must be done constantly to keep weapons and armor in good condition. He has laid out his tools on a piece of leather spread across his lap, has arranged everything with the precision of someone who takes pride in his craft. In his hands, he holds a knife, a seeks, the characteristic single-edged blade that every man carries, that serves as tool and weapon both. The blade is perhaps 12 inches long, made of good steel, forged by a skilled smith, an object that has value beyond its mere utility. The warrior inspects the blade carefully, running his thumb along the edge, not hard enough to cut but hard enough to feel for imperfections, for places where the edge has rolled or chipped. He finds what he is looking for, a small spot perhaps halfway along the blade where the edge is no longer perfectly sharp, where hard use has taken its toll. He nods to himself, unsurprised, and reaches for his whetstone. The whetstone is a flat piece of fine-grained rock, perhaps 6 inches long and 3 inches wide, worn smooth by years of use, darkened with oil and metal particles. The surface is slightly concave in the middle where countless blades have been drawn across it, where the stone has been worn away molecule by molecule, stroke by stroke, year by year. The warrior spits on the stone, uses his thumb to spread the moisture evenly across the surface, creating a thin film of liquid that will help the stone do its work. Then he positions the blade at the correct angle, perhaps 20 degrees, and begins to sharpen. The sound that emerges is one of the most soothing, most hypnotic sounds in the world. Shhhk, a soft, rhythmic scraping, steel against stone, a sound that speaks of care and competence and patience. The warrior draws the blade across the stone with steady, even strokes, maintaining the angle precisely, applying just the right amount of pressure. Too much pressure and he could damage the blade, could create scratches or grooves that would weaken it. Too little pressure, and the stone would do no work, would not remove metal, would not restore the edge. But his pressure is perfect, the result of thousands of repetitions, of years of practice, of a lifetime spent maintaining the tools that keep him alive. Shhhk. The stroke is smooth, controlled, starting at the base of the blade near the handle and pulling toward the tip in one fluid motion. The warrior's hand moves with the certainty of long experience, his muscles remembering the motion, his body knowing exactly what to do. Shhhk. And again. Shhhk. And again. The rhythm is steady, unvarying, meditative, creating a pattern of sound that becomes part of the ambient noise of the hall, that your ear registers and your mind accepts and your body relaxes into. The firelight catches the steel at different angles as the blade moves, creating flashes of orange and gold, brief moments where the metal seems to glow with inner fire. The edge of the blade begins to catch the light in a particular way, a thin, bright line that runs the length of the cutting surface, and this is how you know the blade is becoming sharp, is being restored to its proper state. Shhhk. 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 The sound continues, patient and unhurried, and with each stroke, invisible to the eye, a tiny amount of metal is removed, and the edge becomes a little sharper, a little more refined, a little closer to perfection. The warrior's face is calm, focused but not tense, engaged in the work but not consumed by it. His eyes track the movement of the blade, watching for any change in the way the light reflects, any indication that the edge is becoming uneven, that adjustments need to be made. But his movements remain steady, remain consistent, showing no sign of impatience or frustration. This is meditative work for him, a time when his mind can rest, can process the events of the day, can simply exist without the need to think or plan or worry. The repetitive motion, the steady sound, the feel of the stone beneath the blade, all of it combines to create a state of focused relaxation that is deeply restorative. Shhhk, shhhk, shhhk. After perhaps 50 strokes on one side of the blade, The warrior flips it over and begins working on the other side, maintaining symmetry, ensuring that both sides of the edge are equally sharp, that the blade remains balanced. The angle must be matched precisely to the angle used on the first side, and his hand finds it automatically, without conscious thought, without measurement, just through feel and experience. SHHHK, SHHHK, SHHHK. The sound continues, unchanged, steady as a heartbeat, and around the hall people are soothed by it, comforted by it, by the normalcy of it, by the reminder that life continues, that the work goes on, that men still care for their tools and take pride in their skills. You watch the warrior work, mesmerized by the repetitive motion, by the glint of the firelight on the steel, by the patience and care with which he approaches this simple task. There is something profound in it, something that speaks to a deeper truth about life here, about survival, about the attention to detail that is required when your life might depend on whether your knife is sharp, whether your tools work, whether you have maintained your equipment properly. Nothing here is taken for granted. Nothing is neglected. Everything is cared for, maintained, respected, because everything is necessary. Everything plays a role in keeping people alive through the long, dark winter. Eventually, after what might be 10 minutes or might be 20, time being difficult to judge in this place where clocks do not exist, and the only measure of time is the sun and the seasons, the warrior finishes his work. He inspects the blade again, runs his thumb carefully along the edge, testing it, and a small smile appears on his weathered face. He is satisfied. The blade is sharp again, restored, ready for whatever tasks tomorrow might bring. He wipes the knife clean with a piece of cloth, removes any remaining stone particles or moisture, then slides it carefully into its sheath. The leather scabbard accepts the blade with a soft sound, and the warrior sets it aside, his work complete. But he is not done. From his collection of tools, he picks up another implement, a small hand axe with a wooden handle and a steel head. This too needs attention, needs sharpening, needs care. He examines it as he did the knife, running his fingers along the edge, feeling for imperfections, for spots where the steel has dulled or chipped. Finding what he seeks, he picks up the whetstone again, repositions it on his lap, and begins the process anew. SHHHK, SHHHK, SHHHK. The sound fills the hall again, slightly different this time, the axe head being thicker than the knife blade, the angle being steeper, but still that same rhythmic scraping, still that same patient, methodical approach. The axe is a vital tool here, used for splitting wood, for processing timber, for 1,000 tasks that require a sharp edge and the ability to apply force. A dull axe is dangerous, requires more effort, is more likely to slip or deflect, is more likely to cause injury. A sharp axe is safe, efficient, reliable, cuts clean and true with minimal effort. The mead has made you pleasantly drowsy now, the warmth of it combining with the warmth from the fire to create a deep sense of comfort, of contentment, of being exactly where you need to be. Your eyelids feel heavy, your body feels heavy, but it is a good heaviness, the kind that comes from satisfaction rather than exhaustion, from peace rather than fatigue. The sound of the whetstone, SHHHK, 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 becomes almost a lullaby, a soothing repetitive sound that makes your mind drift, that makes you aware of how tired you are, how ready for sleep. You shift your position slightly, adjusting to get more comfortable, and as you do, you become more aware of the bench beneath you, the sleeping bench that runs along the wall that will serve as your bed for the night. These benches are remarkable pieces of furniture, simple in concept but perfectly designed for their purpose. They are perhaps 2 feet wide and raised about a foot off the ground, just high enough to keep you away from the coldest air which naturally sinks to the floor, but not so high that climbing into them is difficult. The benches are built directly into the structure of the longhouse, attached to the walls, extending the entire length of the hall on both sides. But the benches themselves are just the beginning, just the foundation. What makes them comfortable, What transforms them from wooden platforms into actual beds is the layers of material that are piled upon them. You run your hand across the surface, feeling the textures, the softness, the accumulated warmth. First comes straw, thick handfuls of dried grass that provide padding, that create a cushion between your body and the hard wood. The straw rustles and shifts beneath your touch, dry and clean, and smelling faintly of summer fields, of the harvest time when it was cut and gathered and stored for winter use. Over the straw come furs, layers and layers of furs, and this is where the real luxury lies, where the true comfort is found. These are not decorative furs, not status symbols, though they do indicate wealth and success. These are functional furs, tools for survival, essential equipment for making it through a northern winter. But they are beautiful nonetheless, each one unique, each one carrying with it the story of the animal it came from, the hunt that brought it down, the skilled work of tanning and preparing that transformed a raw hide into something useful and lasting. There are bearskins here, massive and thick, the fur dense and incredibly soft once you push your fingers past the outer guard hairs into the underfur beneath. Bear fur is prized above almost all others for its warmth, its weight, its ability to trap air and create insulation. The hide underneath is tough and durable, will last for decades if properly cared for. A good bearskin might be passed down through generations, becoming an heirloom, a connection to the past, a tangible link to ancestors who also slept beneath this same fur, who also knew its weight and warmth and protection. There are wolf skins as well, sleeker than bear, the fur lying flatter, more elegant in appearance, but no less effective at providing warmth. Wolf fur has a different texture, silkier, more luxurious to the touch, and the colors are beautiful, ranging from pure white to charcoal gray to almost black. Wolf skins speak of the wilderness, of the forests and mountains beyond human settlement, of the wild hunters who roam there, and sleeping under wolf fur connects you to that wildness, reminds you that the boundary between civilization and nature is thin, that the tamed and the wild exist side by side, separated only by the walls of the longhouse and the light of the fire. And there are sheepskins, more common, more readily available, but no less valuable for their ubiquity. Sheepskins are the workhorses, the furs that are relied upon every single day, that never fail to provide warmth and comfort. The wool is curly and dense, incredibly effective at trapping air, at creating pockets of warmth that build and maintain themselves. Sheepskins are practical, reliable, and in a climate where practicality off means the difference between life and death, there is no higher praise. You begin to arrange your sleeping place now, following the example of others around the hall who are also preparing for the night. You pull furs from the pile, select the ones you want, arrange them in layers. First, a thick sheepskin to lie upon, wool side up, providing a soft mattress over the straw and wood. Then more sheepskins pulled up and over, creating a covering, a nest of warmth. Finally, a heavy bearskin on top, the weight of it settling over you like a reassuring hand, pressing down, holding you in place, making you feel secure and protected. The weight is important, more important than you might think. The pressure of the heavy fur creates a sense of being held, of being embraced, that triggers something deep in the human brain, some ancient response that says you are safe, you are protected, you can relax completely. Under the weight of the furs, your body can let go of all tension, can surrender to sleep without reservation, without the need to maintain any vigilance. The furs smell of lanolin and smoke, of the animals they came from, of the long process of tanning and treating. It is not an unpleasant smell, just an honest one, earthy and real, the smell of materials that have been worked with human hands, that have been made useful, that serve the essential purpose of keeping people alive. You press your face into the sheepskin, breathe deeply, and the smell fills your lungs, becomes part of the experience of this night, part of the memory being formed. Around you, others are also settling into their sleeping places, arranging furs, claiming space on the benches, creating their own nests of warmth and comfort. Families cluster together, children nestled between parents, bodies sharing heat, sharing security. The old sleep alone, wrapped in their furs, but still part of the community, still protected by the collective warmth of the hall. Young warriors sleep near the fires, in the warmest spots, because they generate more body heat, because they need less external warmth than children or elders. Everything is arranged according to need, according to an unspoken understanding of who requires what, how to maximize warmth, how to ensure that everyone survives the night. As you settle deeper into your furs, as your body begins to truly relax, you become aware of other presences in the hall, presences you had registered earlier but not fully processed. Near the fires, lying on the straw-covered floor, are the dogs, 3 or 4 of them, large hunting dogs with thick coats and powerful bodies, muscles and bone and unwavering loyalty. These dogs are not pets in the modern sense, not companions kept purely for affection, though there is genuine affection between them and the people of the hall. These are working dogs, hunters, guardians, warriors in their own right. They have been bred for generations for specific traits, for size and strength and courage, for the ability to track prey across miles of wilderness, for the willingness to face down boar and bear and wolf without hesitation. Their jaws are powerful enough to crush bone, their teeth sharp enough to tear through hide and flesh. And yet with the people of this clan, they are gentle, patient, obedient, affectionate. The dogs have been present all evening, you realize, but they have been so quiet, so unobtrusive, so perfectly behaved that you barely noticed them. They have been waiting patiently, as dogs do, for the time when they would be allowed to settle, when the activity of the evening would give way to rest. And now, with people preparing for sleep, the dogs are also preparing, following the lead of their human companions, responding to the changing mood of the hall. One by one, the dogs settle, each performing the ritual of circling their chosen spot, pawing at the straw to arrange it, turning around multiple times in that ancient canine behavior that no one fully understands, but that every dog performs, that must serve some purpose lost in evolutionary history. They circle and paw and turn, and finally, satisfied that the spot is perfect, they lower themselves to the ground with soft groans of satisfaction, with sighs of contentment, with the particular sounds that dogs make when they have found the perfect position, when all is right with their world. The largest dog, a massive grey beast with scars across its muzzle and ears that have been torn in past battles, settles nearest to where you lie, close enough that you could reach out and touch it if you wanted, close enough that you can hear every breath it takes, every small sound it makes. The dog sighs deeply, a long exhale that seems to come from the depths of its being, and then its breathing settles into the slow, regular rhythm of rest. The presence of the dogs is deeply comforting in a way that goes beyond rational thought. These animals are sentries, are guardians, are living alarm systems with senses far keener than any human possesses. If there were danger, if something approached the longhouse in the night, the dogs would know before any human did, would alert, would position themselves between the threat and their pack, would defend with every ounce of strength and ferocity they possess. With them here, sleeping peacefully, you know at a deep, instinctive level that you are safe, that nothing can approach without warning, that you can surrender completely to sleep without keeping any part of your awareness on watch. More than that, the dogs represent something ancient, something fundamental to human nature. The partnership between humans and canines stretches back tens of thousands of years, to the time when the first wolves began to hang around human camps, began to form bonds with these strange upright apes who controlled fire and hunted with tools. That partnership has been refined over millennia, has become coded into the genes of both species, has created a relationship that is unique in the natural world. When a dog is near, when a dog is calm and relaxed, some ancient part of the human brain relaxes too, knows at a level below conscious thought that all is well, that the pack is safe, that the night can be faced without fear. The dogs are not just guardians. They are family, are clan members, are brothers in arms who have proven their loyalty 1,000 times, who would die to protect the people they have bonded with, who ask for nothing more than food and shelter and the opportunity to serve their purpose. You can hear the dog breathing, steady and deep, and the sound becomes another lullaby, another soothing presence that helps you drift toward sleep. The hall is growing quieter now, the conversations dying away, the last preparations being completed. The fires are burning lower, the bright flames settling into beds of glowing coals that pulse with heat, that will maintain warmth through the night without constant attention. And outside, beyond the thick walls, beyond the massive door, beyond the protective embrace of the longhouse, the storm is intensifying. You can hear it clearly now, the wind picking up strength, the howl becoming deeper, more ominous, more powerful. The wind hits the longhouse in waves, in gusts that make the entire structure shudder slightly, that flex the walls, that test every joint, every connection, every decision made by the builders who constructed this place. The roof creaks, timber settling, turf shifting, snow being rearranged and redistributed by the incredible force of the wind. But the sounds are not alarming. They are familiar, expected, the sounds that the longhouse always makes when the weather turns truly brutal, when winter shows its full power. The people here have lived through countless such storms, have heard these sounds hundreds of times, and they know what they mean. The structure is working exactly as designed, flexing rather than breaking, moving rather than shattering, absorbing force rather than resisting it rigidly. The wind screams around the corners of the building, finds every gap and crevice, tries to force its way inside, tries to reclaim the warmth that has been stolen from the natural order of winter. But it cannot penetrate, cannot overcome the barriers that have been erected against it. The walls hold firm. The turf roof holds firm. The door holds firm. Everything holds, and the storm's fury only serves to make the interior feel more secure, more protected, more like a fortress against chaos. The contrast is profound, visceral, impossible to ignore. Outside is violence, cold death waiting for anyone foolish enough to be caught in it. Inside is peace, warmth, life continuing at its own pace, protected and preserved. The worse the storm becomes, the better you feel about being inside, about being safe, about being part of a community that has built something strong enough to withstand anything the north can throw at it. Snow must be falling heavily now, adding to the accumulation on the roof, adding weight and pressure, and yet another layer of insulation. You imagine it piling up, drifting against the walls, burying the lower parts of the structure, transforming the longhouse into something that is half building and half snow fort, part architecture and part natural formation. By morning, the entire settlement might be buried, the longhouse barely visible beneath the white, and it will take hours of work with shovels to dig paths, to clear doorways, to make it possible to move between buildings. But that is tomorrow's problem. Tonight, the snow is actually helping, is actually providing additional protection, additional insulation, additional barrier between the warmth inside and the cold outside. The longhouse is becoming a hibernation den, a cave of warmth in a world of ice, and everyone inside is settling into that space, accepting it, surrendering to it, allowing themselves to enter that state of deep rest that winter demands, that survival requires. The fire continues to burn, but differently now. The bright leaping flames have died down, have been allowed to settle into a deep bed of coals that glow red and orange, and sometimes almost white in their centers, where the heat is most intense. This is the fire at its most efficient, its most effective, when it provides maximum heat with minimum consumption, when it can sustain itself for hours with only occasional additions of wood. Someone, you don't see who, moves quietly through the hall, checking each section of the long fire, adding a log here, adjusting a coal there, ensuring that the warmth will continue through the night, that no one will wake to cold, that the protection of the Longhouse will hold until morning. This person has accepted the duty of fire keeper, of guardian of the flame, and they will stay awake while others sleep, will sacrifice their own rest to ensure the survival of the community. It is a noble duty, a sacred duty, and it is performed without complaint, without expectation of reward, simply because it must be done and someone must do it. The light in the hall has changed completely now, has transformed from the golden glow of evening to the deep red glow of night. The coals provide illumination, but it is dim, intimate, barely enough to see by, just enough to make out shapes and shadows, to distinguish one sleeping form from another. Faces are invisible now, features lost in darkness. The walls have disappeared. The roof has disappeared. The full extent of the hall has shrunk down to just the immediate area around each section of the fire, and even those areas are more feeling than sight, more presence than visible reality. Your eyes are heavy now, impossibly heavy, and keeping them open requires active effort, requires will. You let them close, let the darkness take over, and immediately you feel yourself beginning to drift. The sounds of the hall are fading, growing distant, becoming part of the background, part of the ambient noise that your brain no longer processes consciously. The breathing of the people around you, the soft snores, the occasional rustle of someone shifting position, the crackle of the coals, the wind outside, all of it blends together into a kind of symphony, a lullaby sung by the Longhouse itself. Your body has achieved complete relaxation now. Every muscle is loose, every joint is easy, every bit of tension has drained away. The furs have warmed from your body heat, have created a cocoon of perfect temperature, not too hot, not too cold, just exactly right. Your head rests on a makeshift pillow, a rolled cloak, or perhaps a bag stuffed with straw, something soft enough to be comfortable, firm enough to provide support. Your hands are tucked under the furs, curled against your chest, warm and protected. Your feet, which were so cold when you came in from outside, which ached with cold, are now gloriously warm, wrapped in wool, buried under layers of sheepskin, feeling nothing but heat and comfort. The weight of the furs presses down on you, heavy and reassuring, and you sink deeper into the straw, your body conforming to the bench, finding that perfect position that every sleeper seeks, that point of balance where no adjustment is needed, where you could remain exactly as you are for hours without discomfort. You are not thinking about anything now, not planning or worrying or processing. Your mind has quieted, has begun to drift into that space between waking and sleeping, where thoughts become loose and disconnected, where images float past without meaning, where consciousness begins to fragment and dissolve. Around you, the hall has achieved its nighttime state, has completed its transformation from workspace and gathering place to dormitory, to sleeping den, to hibernation chamber. Nearly everyone is asleep now, or close to it, breathing deeply, regularly, surrendering to the needs of the body, to the requirements of rest. The children are deeply asleep, their breathing soft, and even their small bodies generating surprising amounts of heat, warming their parents who sleep beside them. The dogs are asleep, their breathing even deeper, even slower, their bodies completely relaxed, at peace. The smoke still rises from the coals, still drifts through the rafters, but it too has diminished, has become a thin haze rather than a thick cloud. It moves slowly, drifting on invisible currents, carrying the smell of wood smoke throughout the hall, ensuring that every breath you take is flavored with it, that the scent becomes part of your dreams, part of the deep rest you are entering. Outside, the storm has reached its peak, the wind howling at maximum fury, the snow falling so thickly that visibility must be reduced to nothing, the world outside reduced to white chaos, to swirling frozen death. But inside, the Longhouse stands firm, unmoved, unshaken despite the shuddering, protecting everyone within, fulfilling its purpose, doing exactly what it was designed to do. The walls hold. The roof holds. The fire holds. Everything holds, and in holding allows life to continue, allows survival to be possible, allows sleep to be safe. The last thing you are aware of, the final conscious thought before sleep takes you completely, is a profound sense of gratitude and security. Gratitude for this place, for the people who built it, for the clan who maintains it, for the community that has accepted you into their number. Security because you are warm, because you are fed, because you are protected, because nothing can reach you here, because you can let go completely, can surrender to sleep without fear, without worry, without the need to maintain any vigilance whatsoever. And then even that fades, dissolves, becomes nothing, and you slip into deep sleep, into unconsciousness, into that black, restful space where the body heals itself, where the mind processes the day, where life continues at its most basic level while consciousness takes its necessary rest. Your breathing becomes deep and regular, indistinguishable from the breathing of everyone else in the hall. Just one more body in the collective, one more member of the clan entering the long night's rest. The longhouse breathes around you, the timbers settling, the structure living, and somewhere deep in your sleeping mind, you feel it. Feel the protection, feel the shelter, feel the profound rightness of being here, of being part of this, of being safe in the heart of winter while the storm rages outside and the world holds its breath waiting for spring. And as the snow buries the village in white, the longhouse stands firm against the night. The fire holds, the clan sleeps, and you are safe. Sleep well.